So this is the documentation of the first part of my cycle where I'm starting Buserelin and down-regulating. I filmed every injection. If you don't like seeing needles, you might want to fast forward. It's not really intensive, but you do see the needle. So enjoy. Yeah? Yeah. Can't get it in.
Grab the skin more firm, Anna, for real, because you don't grab the skin, you don't have any, yeah. Here we are. Okay. Hey, number 2. A smile.
Day 2.
In the eye.
Here?
Yeah, it's up to you. Yeah.
It's the piercing.
Yeah. Don't think about it. Do it. Do it. Just push it in, push it in, push it in. Push it in, push it in. She's there, boys.
Wait a sec, can you get the tissue for me? What we never really know what got discussed.
Right. Should've known you were bad news. When the bad news mean and the bad tools. Those guys only want
You recorded? Yes! 50 seconds already, yeah?
And pause. Today is day 15. This is 15 days of me taking Buserelin. I think in the US the equivalent is menopause. And all in all, I must say I felt pretty much okay. I have felt quite tired and I have gone through different periods of feeling a bit nauseous, but not extensively. Just I'll sometimes think, oh, I feel a bit sick, and after a few minutes it slowly passes. The injections were quite frightening at first, and I think although the first day went well, the second day was particularly tough because I physically could not get the needle, the syringe into me. And I think after that rather traumatic experience, I decided I just got to be quite forceful with it, which I have been. Since then it's been fine. doesn't really hurt. I've had the occasional one that stings a little bit. Out of all 15, I would say maybe 3 stung a bit more, so it was kind of uncomfortable, but it wasn't to the point of, oh, you know, this is horrific pain or anything like that. It's really just become a part of my everyday routine. Obviously, me and my partner are working from home during the lockdown. I'll be sat here, she'll suddenly appear and I'll be like, oh, is it 10 o'clock already? And we do the injection, and we've recorded every single one, as you will see, and that's kind of that. Yeah, I would say the tiredness is the most prominent thing for me. Nothing unbearable, and it could also be the fact that we are still in lockdown and I think everyone's feeling quite tired. I've had very severe hay fever. Very, very bad. You may see it in my eyes. This eye in particular was all puffed up this morning. So I'm trying to just distinguish what are the IVF symptoms and what is hay fever and lockdown symptoms. I don't even have any bruising on my stomach. If you look very carefully, you can see kind of a tiny faint mark of where the syringes have been input. But to be honest, you wouldn't know that I was even really going through the treatment at all. So what has been the first challenge for us since starting the medication is that I have not bled. And when you take Buserelin, it downregulates your body, it puts you in this kind of temporary state of menopause, and we were told within the first kind of 3 to 5 days, week or so, that I would bleed. And from what I've read online, it's kind of like a very heavy period, you know, one of the worst periods you could potentially ever have. But that bleed is necessary because it's thinning out the lining of your womb. You kind of shed the lining, it thins out nicely, and that's what you need to move on to the next step of medication, which is to then kind of pump yourself up, make your ovaries really big, and do all the necessary stuff to get, hopefully, some eggs at the end of this process. So as I said, we're now on day 15 and I have not bled. I've had a little bit of spotting, but other than that, I've not bled. I've felt many times that I'm going to bleed. It's kind of how you feel before you start your period. You start to feel a bit bloated. You just kind of feel washed out and tired and drained and all those kinds of things. But no full-on bleed has happened. So I rang my clinic and told them this a few days ago, and they postponed my first scan by 3 days to give me more time. But within that 3 days, I still hadn't had this kind of heavy bleed. So I still went for my scan yesterday, and this was the first scan I'd had since starting the round. And it went fine, wasn't painful or anything like that, but the nurse confirmed that my womb lining was still too thick. So we were a bit gutted with this because yesterday I was meant to start GONOR-F, which is the next step of injections, and it would have basically meant that I was almost, I think just over actually halfway through the cycle, and I was getting to the really important bit, and you know the end was kind of more in sight if I'd got to that stage. But they've told me to hold off on that. I need to carry on with Buserelin and continue to downregulate for another week, which means that this plan has to kind of go out the window, and I've been given a new plan, which is now 2 pages. I appreciate that's only a short page, but you can see in the orange parts, if I can hold it up, the amount of kind of Buserelin. It's going to go into 20 days of it. So what should have been actually kind of, I should have changed on day 14. I'll now be changing medication or moving up to medication on day 20. So what is already a long cycle, a long protocol, is becoming an extra long protocol. And now I'm obviously very stressed because if I'm not having that bleed again in the next couple of days, I'm starting to freak out that the cycle might be cancelled, which is obviously the scariest concern at this stage. But hopefully all will be okay. From what I've read and from what the nurse said to me, this isn't completely unheard of or uncommon. Some women, it does take longer. I've read that some women said it took them up to 15 to 20 days to bleed. So I'm hoping that that's basically what's going to happen to me, and that will happen in the next few days, preferably a few hours to calm my nerves. I've realised in this process that you spend a lot of your time at the beginning desperately wanting to bleed, because that kind of allows you to start the cycle and move up and progress throughout the cycle. And then obviously when you get to the end of it, and if you manage to get to a pregnancy stage, obviously you spend the whole time not wanting to bleed. So it's a very strange process, very difficult one, being a woman in general, I think. But this has certainly been the first challenge for us. And yeah, I'm feeling a bit scared and a bit impatient, and it's difficult, especially in the lockdown, because it's kind of constantly there, and you can't really escape too much from it at any one time. But fingers crossed, it will happen. I'm going to put my new schedule up on the fridge here and start ticking that one off. So we've got another few days of it to go. Today is Friday, and my next scan is next Thursday. So we will see where that takes me. But all in all, injection-wise, it really hasn't been too bad, and I'm quite pleased at the way in which I've been able to just get on with it, and not, after the first couple of days where I was kind of quite anxious about it, just factor it into my daily routine, and that's actually been really good. So on to the next chapter now, and we'll see what it brings. Fingers crossed. So we go on the new plan, we keep ticking because we've done all this, and we are here. Okay, so now we see. We've been doing this for a long time, but we're getting there. I hope we're getting there.